Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to the world, little Miss Riley Olivia. Riley was born on September 23rd, 2020, and we could not be happier. So I'm so excited to share her birth story with you guys today. It was by far my easiest labor, easiest delivery, and my easiest postpartum recovery, which is such a great thing. For the third time around. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Please go ahead and hit subscribe and I hope you enjoy. So Riley here is at 2 weeks old right now. Again, she was born on September 23rd and she was born when I was 39 weeks and 4 days. Now, Riley was born via an induction, and I did say that I was not interested in an induction at all unless it was medically necessary. However, after several rounds of false labor and learning that she was sunny side up, I was just so tired and so ready, and therefore opted in for an elective induction at 39 weeks and 4 days. So the morning of our induction, my mom came over to stay with the boys. It was nice and early. We left for the hospital at 6:30 in the morning and arrived around 7. And once we got in our room and everything, it was closer to 7:30. At that point, they started my antibiotics because I was GBS positive for this pregnancy and also my past two. And they also started me on Pitocin. At that time, I already was contracting a little bit on my own and I was already 2 centimeters dilated, but they wanted to kickstart the labor with some Pitocin and they only started me on a very low dose, level 2 or number 2, which is very low. So they did that for about an hour, and at 8:30 they inserted a Foley balloon to help me dilate. Now I also had this balloon inserted when I was pregnant with Mason. His delivery was a medically necessary induction for low fluid. So I was very familiar with the process, but they put in a balloon, inflate it with saline just to force you to dilate. Now the balloon comes out on its own at 4 or 5 centimeters, but my midwife said that regardless of how dilated I was, she was going to be removing it after only 2 hours. So that was inserted at 8:30. And at this point, I've already been having Pitocin for an hour and I was definitely contracting and in a decent amount of pain. Manageable, I was on the birthing ball, but definitely having to stop, breathe, and focus on my contractions because they were pretty painful. The balloon itself was not painful to have inserted, or it wasn't even painful once it was there, but it definitely did prompt a little bit of cramping, but I otherwise couldn't feel it. So I was able to walk around the room, I was able to bounce on the ball. So my midwife had said all along that at 10:30, after only 2 hours, she was going to be removing the balloon and keeping the process going. Well, at 10:27, I started to feel a lot of pressure, and while bouncing on the ball, I felt like I was sitting on something. And I kind of was starting to think that that was the balloon starting to come out on its own, and it was. And within a minute, I called the nurses and said, I think something's going on. I feel a lot of pressure. I really have to go to the bathroom. Can someone come in? And before anyone even arrived, the balloon fell out on its own all over the floor. And I was 5 centimeters dilated. So my midwife never even had to remove it. It just popped out on its own and did exactly what it was supposed to do. So at 10:30, I was 5 centimeters dilated and had already been on Pitocin for 3 hours and contracting every 1 to 2 minutes. Before the balloon fell out, I was contracting every 2 to 3 minutes or so while on the birthing ball. And again, my contractions were very strong at this point and lasting for 45 seconds. So at 10:30, when the balloon fell out, my midwife came on in and she decided, let's just keep things going. Let's break your water. I was kind of surprised by that because my water hadn't broke, and I kind of expected that they were going to wait for it to break on its own, but no, she wanted to keep things going. She broke my water at 10:30, and that's when the contractions really started to pick up, coming every minute or so. I still was not interested in getting an epidural because I wanted to be able to walk around the room and use the ball as needed for comfort. So from 10:30 to 12:30, I just managed my contractions. I breathed through them, and we were just kind of cruising along. By 12:30, I was 7 centimeters dilated and very uncomfortable. I still thought that, okay, my contractions are manageable. Maybe I can do this without the epidural, but decided I'm not going to wait for it to be too late and then not be able to get it. So I called in the anesthesia team at 12:30 and got the epidural. Now, to be completely honest, I wish I called them 10 minutes sooner, because when I called them, I was fine and able to like breathe through my contractions. But by the time I was on the table getting the epidural and having to hold still, I was screaming in pain. So I think I waited like 10 minutes too long. So if you were ever considering it and on the fence, just call them in before it gets too late, because when you are getting that epidural, you do really have to hold steady and still, which is not an easy thing when you are contracting. So 12:30, I got the epidural. And then I had to be in a bed after that point. The epidural was very, very strong, and I lost complete feeling in my legs. They were very heavy, but I was still able to feel all of the contractions in my belly, which I was surprised by, because with both of the 2 boys, that wasn't the case. So I was still able to feel all the contractions in my belly and my lower stomach, but I wasn't able to like use my legs or move at all. So 12:30, that was when I got the epidural. And then came like 4 o'clock or so, it was time to start pushing. So there was a little bit of a window where we had to just wait it out through all of the contractions, but I did not start pushing until 4 o'clock. Now, I was on Pitocin the entire time, but they never had to bring me up higher than 2. So my body kind of just kicked into gear and knew what to do instinctively and was just ready to deliver without ever having to have a very high dose of the Pitocin, which is a really good thing, because synthetic contractions, if you have a very high dose of Pitocin, can be very painful. And I experienced that with my first delivery. So she was ready come 4 o'clock. She was down there, and I knew it's time to push because I felt a lot of pressure. And at this point, my epidural had almost completely worn off. So I was pushing for about 30 minutes, which is a lot longer than I expected. Gavin was only 9 minutes of pushing, but again, she was sunny side up, just like the boys were, which can make pushing very difficult. She never flipped. So a little before 4 o'clock, we started pushing, and at 4:20, she arrived and was our biggest baby. Look at this peanut, which is crazy to think, because once they placed her on my chest, I thought, oh my gosh, she's so small. But she was born at 4:20 and was 7 pounds and 10 ounces and 20 inches long. Now, the boys were each 18 inches and 17 and a half inches, so she was quite a bit longer than both of them, but she came out with a full head of hair, just like her brothers, but her hair is dark. Both of the boys were kind of blonde when they were born. So in that exact same day, we had our baby girl. We left for the hospital at 6:30, and at 4:30 p.m. we were holding her in our arms, and it was pretty much a picture perfect induction. Nothing really went wrong, other than the epidural wasn't as effective as I would have hoped it to be. But I got my full round of antibiotics for being GBS positive. I didn't have to require a lot of Pitocin, and she came out nice and healthy. One of the interesting things about her delivery was the fact that her umbilical cord was so short. So with all 3, I requested delayed cord clamping. And with Gavin, I want to say they delayed it by like 20-30 minutes. He was on my chest for a very long time before they cut the cord. And that was the plan this time around with Riley. But her cord was so short that they couldn't even place her on my belly, much less my chest, because there just wasn't any room. The cord was literally like this, which is super interesting. My midwife said that she had never seen a cord so short. I don't really know what caused that. It obviously didn't cause any complications, but we weren't able to do that because she couldn't really go anywhere. So that was kind of weird. Following her birth, we did stay in the hospital for 2 nights because I was GBS positive. They do like you to stay a full 48 hours after delivery just to make sure that no infection was passed along to the baby. That was what we had to do with both of the boys, so I kind of expected that upon going into the hospital, but she was perfectly healthy and there was no concerns. So we stayed for 2 nights, definitely missed the boys along that time, but I was so excited just to bring her home after those 2 days and introduce her to her brothers and get acclimated as a family of 5. But yes, overall a textbook picture perfect induction. I am so glad that I went the induction route. I do always wonder when I would have gone into labor on my own and if I actually would have been able to dilate on my own, given the fact that she was sunny side up and hitting my tailbone. So I don't know, but I guess it doesn't matter at this point because here she is. She is so perfect and beautiful, and we are just loving every minute with her. So that is her birth story in short. If you have any questions, I'm kind of an open book here, so leave those in the comment section. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for following along on her pregnancy this entire time. It has been quite a journey to getting her into our arms, and we are just so glad that she is here now.
I was never the one to write up a song for just anyone. I was always the one to find myself lost in old conversations, cause I've always been told that things will unfold if you keep on waiting. But then you came along and proved me all wrong. I was so mistaken, cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby.